forget, hit subscribe, slap that bell, and make sure you're part of Team Hobby Center.
Hi everyone. Last weekend, June 3rd and 4th, was the Arnprior train show at the arena in Arnprior, Ontario. Arnprior is a little town just west of Ottawa. It's really a quick drive with the 4-lane highway connecting it to Ottawa. It takes maybe 20 minutes to get there if you're in the West End. It was part of a festival going on in the city. The show has grown a little bit every year. It wasn't the kind of show that the Hobby Center would go to sell things because it didn't have that big of a draw, and logistically that far away with a 2-day show it really wouldn't be practical for us to be involved. But if you're a train fan, this show was for you. It was something you should not have missed. As you can see, there's lots of things to see and do. This is awesome for kids, especially young kids that like trains and whatnot. There's all kinds of layouts, all kinds of merchandise, all kinds of shiny things for them to see. So first I do a walk around the perimeter just to show you some of the retailers that are there. Most of these retailers, as I call them, are people that just do shows. I know somebody in the business used to call them gypsy vendors. They just go to exhibitions and train fairs and things like that. So this is the place where you run into those kind of guys, and they have a big assortment of primarily used secondhand equipment, so you can score yourself some good deals on stuff when you go to these shows. Always good for novice and beginner train people, because the price of trains, let's face it, is getting up there these days. And this is the only place locally where you might find this G-scale equipment. I can't think of anybody in town, myself included, that caters to G-scale or Garden Railroad, which is the big stuff. Of course, there's plenty of HO scale and N scale to see here. And you will find Lionel trains O-scale here, which you also can't buy in a retail store locally these days, since the demise of the Christmas train store. And as you can see, there's train memorabilia as well. You'll see like lanterns and different things like that. There may be books and reference materials and things like that. So there's always lots to see and check out at these shows. Here's Ian. He's one of the organizers of the Gatineau Train and Hobby Show that we visit each year. And he's a nifty little layout in N scale that he was displaying. You can tell the kids were delighted with this little thing. As you can see, as you go along, there's no lack of variety and types of trains and train-related merchandise that you can pick from here. As I said at the beginning, if you are a model train fan, you need to go to a show like this. Dinosaur inside of a freight car caught my eye. And you see related things that aren't necessarily trains. Like this gentleman is selling all kinds of different buses and streetcars, and die cast. Mazur's buses. And you would only see this fellow at this type of a show. There's those books I was mentioning, reference materials. Got loose trains, box trains, previously loved trains, some new trains. And there's something you wouldn't expect to see at a train show. There's a little teddy bear booth, stuffed animals. You get lots of kids out to these shows, why not? more of that garden railroad that I was mentioning earlier. There's no place in town that sells that stuff. And here's another bus and trolley car dealer. All brand new die casts. It was nice to see a workshop in place. You could watch these fellows from OVAR, that's the Ottawa Valley Associated Railroaders. They put on a little clinic so you can see what they're up to, and you can see examples of their beautiful work. These dioramas are stunning. I think that's one of the most fascinating aspects of model trains, whether you're into the trains themselves or not. The diorama aspect of it is trying to make this thing as realistic as possible. And you can go as deep as you want. Every little facet of the layout can be a standalone work of art on its own, and then taken en masse, it's just staggering when you try to take it in all its scope. James here puts on a really neat exhibition at this show. He is a member of the Ottawa Model Car Group. He's a long-haul trucker and ex-serviceman. He served in Afghanistan. Thank you for your service. He puts on a single man's car display with all his built-up models and little figures and that. And then he enhanced it by putting a G-scale train around the outside, because the G-scale train scales in closely with the model cars. So overall, it makes a really cool display. This G-scale train, he tells me, is battery powered. So he just changes the batteries out periodically and just lets it rip. That way he doesn't have to electrify the train track as you do with a typical model railroad setup. So that was the outside ring of the show. Now we're going to the inside where all the layouts are, pretty much. This is a fun layout. It's a Thomas the Tank Engine themed one, with Thomas and friends running around. It's always a big hit with the kids at these shows. And there's Thomas himself, Annie and Clarabelle. This is the T-Track group. They have exhibited inside our store on occasion. These are little modules that set up on a tabletop. So you just get a bunch of fellows together and some fold-out tables, and you're ready to rip. It's very portable, and as you can see, it's just defined by the limits of your imagination and how much you want to put into it. Stunning scenery. I was particularly impressed with the winter scene that you just saw. My airplane view of the thing may be going a little fast. It looked a little blurry there, but I tried to do better. There's a Thomas ripping by, and here comes a freight train. This is a neat little layout. It had a bunch of different scales on it. Some of the themes had to do with M&Ms and candies and things like that. It was a very light-hearted looking little display. So you had your G scale, your O scale, your HO scale, your N scale. Kind of give you a visual reference to the different sizes and how they stack up against each other. Ottawa Valley N-Track modular layout. These guys are always a big hit. They do beautiful work. They differ from T-Track as in all these modules are much bigger and they have their own legs and stands, so it's a whole construction thing to put this together. So there's much more work involved to moving these guys around. This was really neat. rather than having a train layout, this is a modular diorama. And it's all HO scaled vehicles, cars, trucks, construction, what have you. So these gentlemen collect these vehicles, which you can normally use on a train layout, and they've created these modules that they can take out and stick together, depending on who shows up and whatnot. The roads and so forth enter off the same points on each section of the layout or module, and so they just butt them up together and away you go. So it made for a really interesting display, all to scale. So it's like having a model train layout without having model trains running around. It's just a big diorama. And just like train layouts, you can embellish the scenery and you can go really deep on it or as light as you want, depending on what your interest is in it. It was neat to see this many different vehicles and all to scale together. Coming back the other way again to get another look at it. Trying to be like an airplane going over the road. This caught my eye. Timothy Eaton's. You have to be of an age to remember the Eaton's Company in Canada. Moving along to another modular layout. ON30. So that's old gauge trains that run on a narrow gauge track, which is almost the size of an HO track. So narrow gauge railroads are sort of a subset of the major scales. They usually pertain to working trains like logging and mining and things like that, where they want to put a smaller gauge track but run, normal size type equipment on that smaller track. So being as the trains themselves are in the bigger scale, this allows you to get really crazy because you're actually building model buildings and scenery and all that stuff in a larger scale than you would, for a regular HO scale size. So the scale is approximately 1 to 48th on this. As we come around, I think we're going to see some really nice scenery on this one. I had never seen these guys at a train show before. Mind you, I haven't really been to much of a train show since the rail fair stopped operating in Ottawa, and that was some considerable time ago. That's the one that used to be at Algonquin College. So again, it's very important to support these small train shows in the outlying towns and villages, because we don't have anything currently in Ottawa, but hopefully that'll change. Somebody will take the initiative and get it going here in Ottawa again. See some of the level of detail that you can accomplish, more easily in a larger scale. Now we're coming up on a British theme layout. Fans of British and European trains. So this one would be based on trains and scenery and whatnot you would see in the United Kingdom. As you see, there's some beautiful modeling and detailing on these modules. British prototype trains. A lot of good work goes into these modules, and there's a lot of work taking them out, setting them up, and putting them together for these shows. all the people that participate, and it's all done voluntarily, should be commended for the work and effort they put in to promote the hobby. As a hobby store retailer, I really appreciate the work these guys do and the things they do to promote hobbies and get people excited about doing hobbies. Modular layout. This one is in HO scale. The military train there kind of caught my eye. And I'm always a sucker for a good passenger train. Be a little break in the action coming up. This poor fella here, right as he came around the corner, I think I caught it there. Yeah, he started to derail, and there goes the engine. So I had to do some work to get that put back on to rights. Sometimes when they hook two different modules together, you might get a little bump or a little something going on between them, and occasionally the trains jump the tracks, but they were on top of it and they got it all put to rights really quickly. Some modules you can see are a work in progress. They've got the basics laid out, but they haven't got too crazy with it. I really like this truck depot. It's got a nice degree of finish and color to it. A busy street scene is kind of an eye catcher too. Modular layouts allow you to play with other train enthusiasts. If you don't have the space or the inclination to build a giant layout in your house or apartment, but you'd like to, get the enjoyment of playing with trains and doing scenery and going all in on this type of thing, a modular layout, whether it be the ones on their own legs like these fellas operate, or those really cool little T-track modules that we talked about earlier, is a great way to be involved in the hobby, be social with other like-minded people. Sort of have your cake and eat it too. You don't have to build permanent furniture that takes up most of your house. You build a little something, you take it out and play with the other guys when they do their exhibits. Lego trains. Big hit with the kids. It's amazing what they can do with Lego. I'm looking at all the different types of train, bullet trains. It looks like one of those electrified units, a crocodile maybe. It's neat. And this stuff is running around. If you like Lego, this is really for you. Coming up on a G-scale modular layout. That's some big stuff. This is running in around the 24th scale, as you can see by all the automobiles and stuff that are on the layout. And those are pretty darn big houses. And the size of that trolley car, it's probably close to 2 feet long. There are somebody working on it. It's a Heisler, a logging train. It's logging cars, just trying to get them out of the way before they get knocked over. These trains are big, and they were designed, primarily for outdoor layouts. That's why it's G or garden scale. But they look really cool when they're running around on these layouts indoors as well. So that should bring us close to the end. We had one more little layout here. It's a work in progress. I spoke to the gentleman. He's involved with the Tuna Shriners. The trains are his thing, and he uses it to promote the Shriners. He was talking about promoting possibly a future show in Ottawa, so we'll stay tuned for that. This is in the other room. There was a smaller room. Most of it was in the arena, and then they had an adjunct room here. And they had this really cool layout running in there in HO scale. And they had 3 other vendors in here, I think, that didn't fit in the other room, or they wanted to spread the show around. Model container freight train. See how long this is. That's another thing that would be difficult to do unless you have an extremely big layout in your house. These guys can put some long runs of trains on these things. You know, when they put it all together, look at the length of this train going here. That would be very difficult to do on many home layouts, but they've got the nice long runs that they can do this, so it makes for a more spectacular running display. There's a little display, tabletop type stuff. Some very nice modeling going on here.